where's the county right now?
Well, I think it's important to start from where we were a month ago. A month ago, we were really talking about social distancing. We were talking about, being safe by staying home. And I think in the month that we've done that, I think we've seen a real result. The ultimate objective has always been to flatten the curve. We haven't promised people that they were going to avoid becoming infected. But what we did say was our healthcare system was not capable of being able to deal with a sudden surge of patients requiring respirators, requiring ICUs, and that to be able to not be something like we were seeing in Italy or what we've seen in New York, we had to, again, push the curve down. And I think in this last 30 to 40 days, we've seen exactly that. People have embraced the idea that they have to stay home, especially our most vulnerable population. But now I think that the county sees that as we have seen the surge start to lessen, and as we've looked at our capacity in the hospitals, we recognize that it's now the opportune time to begin the discussions about how we can now restart the economy, allow people to start thinking about going back to work in what we had called non-essential businesses before. And so that's where we are right now. We've taken, a look back at the last 30 to 40 days and said, we've accomplished the objective. We've flattened the curve. And now we have to start looking at the next step of how we start slowly restarting the economy.
The unknown right now is how do we maintain the CDC guidelines yet still get back to, quote, normal?
Well, I think normal is certainly going to be something that's going to be the new normal. And I think that people are going to have to recognize that social distancing doesn't go away the day that their employer says, okay, come back to work. That in situations where it's tight quarters, where let's say it's in a beauty shop or in a hair salon or when you're going to manicures or massages, if those are activities that we're going to restart, people are going to have to do other things besides social distancing. They're going to have to put on face coverings. They're going to have to be very conscious of their hygiene, being very conscious of every time you touch anybody or a common surface that you're going to have to make sure that you have, again, washed your hands or used some sort of a fluid on you to clean up and not be putting yourself in harm's way. Now, we're probably going to see another smaller surge as people come out of their bunkers. People are going to come out. They are going to get they're restless right now. I mean, a lot of people want to go back to the recreation areas. They're saying, please, let's go back to the beaches. I just want to walk there. Or let's go back to the golf. I swear we won't go, we won't touch each other. We'll be one in a cart. We'll turn the cups upside down and do everything we can to socially distance. And I grant them the rules that they are proposing do accommodate our objective of social distancing. But ultimately, people are going to need to take responsibility for themselves. If you are someone who is at risk of being infected, that you have pre-existing conditions, or you are elderly, you're not going to want to just be jumping out of the house as soon as we say, all right, it's now safe to go out and begin your not normal activities, but the new activities.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a new normal. Face masks like we see in China and Japan will be something that I think we're going to see more often here now. And I think, I'm walking around with, these little bottles all the time and constantly putting it on my hands and constantly washing. I take the dogs out to walk. I come in, I wash my hands. I touch something outside. I come in and wash my hands. I go to Publix and pick up groceries. I go in and wash my hands. And we are so focused on that right now. And I just hope people don't suddenly relax and say, all right, it's business as usual.
Is that where we're getting into now is phase 2 for the
Exactly.
county.
Exactly. Phase two really is an opportunity for people to get out of their homes. We are in South Florida. We're here because this is such a beautiful place to live, and people are getting cabin fever. So it's time to recognize, again, we flatten the curve. If people are expecting that the disease, that virus is going to be disappearing, they're mistaken. This disease is going to be with us until there is a vaccine that enough of our population is willing to take. Until that point in time, this will be in the background. And we are going to have to measure our actions with that in our mind. But, we've done that before. We've gone through flu seasons. We've gone through other times when there have been diseases, chickenpox, mumps, rubella, whatever. And, I remember many, many years ago when there was no vaccine for chickenpox, that the parents would gather us all up, bring us over to a kid's home who had the chickenpox, and we would all get it at once
Chickenpox party, yeah.
because there was no serious complication.
Yeah.
But the problem this go around with COVID-19 was there was such a problem that if you got the problem of respiratory issues, that we didn't have the ICU capacity to be able to deal with it. So I think we're now dealing with the opportunity to take people outside, like you said, natural areas and parks, boat ramps, marinas, and water activities, golfing and golf courses and beaches. We have activities that people can continue to socially distance while enjoying the benefits of the vitamin D from the sun and not being sedentary. My view is that we should have an announcement from the county, at least either at the end of this week, being tomorrow, or early next week. We have working groups that have been putting their heads together, industry members and healthcare professionals, and looking at this transition. And it's the same thing going on at the state level. As you know, Mayor Kerner has been appointed to the executive committee for the governor's task force. And it's not so easy just turning on a switch. I mean, there is supply lines that have been cut. You can't just tomorrow say, I'm going to open up my restaurant. You have to go to your suppliers. You have to make decisions how you're going to handle payments. You have to reconfigure the restaurant so that you can accommodate social distancing. You have to make decisions how you're going to handle menus, how you're going to handle, your servers, what's going to be the criteria. All these things have to be taken into account. And the background of all this is we have to make sure that we're not going to be opening up liabilities for these people as they are now going to start opening up. We don't want to see people saying, I went to this particular location, this venue, and I got sick, or I wound up in the hospital, blaming that venue and saying, I'm going to sue because they should never have opened. We have to do this in an intelligent fashion. We have to do this with the advice of our healthcare professionals, and we have to do this with the idea that people have free will. And just because we're going to open up a venue doesn't mean you have to go. If you don't feel comfortable walking on the beach, no one is telling you to be there. If you don't feel comfortable being on a golf course, you shouldn't be there. And if you are someone who has problems, either pre-existing conditions, or you are of an age that is particularly susceptible to this disease, then you should make a decision on your own whether this is the appropriate activity for you.
In your eyes, do you feel certain non-essential businesses can have some light at the end of the tunnel right now, thinking that they can slowly, gradually open in the next 2 weeks here?
Look, one person's essential service is another one's non-essential. Like you said, my wife has been telling me it's time to open up the hair salons. I need to go in. And so, you're going to look at things. Now, we have stopped elective surgery. But, there comes a point where elective surgery doesn't become so elective anymore. I've seen on the TV that there have been people talking about getting major surgery, kidney transplants that are been deemed elective. And so that's been put off. We can't continually put off what is normally done. People going into the doctor for routine health checks, that's done so that you put off a problem in the future. If we are telling everybody routine medical, don't go in, don't get your teeth cleaned, don't, do elective surgery, you're going to wind up building up the problems that all of these services were meant to stop. And okay, going to the beauty salon is probably a nice to have, but there comes a point where we are going to allow people under the proper guidelines and cautions to have their shops open. And if it is a salon, well, if there's 20 chairs, maybe they're only going to be able to use 5 of them and maintain the social distancing and have the mask on both the customer and on the person who is working on them. So we're going to have to adapt to what is the new reality. People are going to be called back to work, and I'm already getting some communications from people saying, I'm being called back to work and I feel uncomfortable. And the fact is, people are going to be called back to work, and ultimately they're going to have to make a decision whether they feel comfortable going back to work or whether they're going to need to forego their employment until they feel that it is safe for them to go back. But we do need to restart the economy. We do need to appreciate that a lot of sacrifices have been made and are going to be made, and we need to allow our residents some more ability to make their own decisions.